Okay, section 1.5. The book titles it Addition of Real Numbers, which means that it's going to include fractions and decimals, along with the focus of it, which is really how to deal with adding positive and negative numbers. Now we'll turn around in 1.6 and deal with subtraction. Remember, I've been mentioning over the last couple sections that subtraction is really just adding the negative. So that dealing with adding the negatives here is going to help you with the subtraction, because that's how we'll teach it in 1.6. So we'll do subtraction in 1.6, and that's really just adding the negative, or adding the opposite. Okay, but that's enough of a lead there. Let's look right here. So as I say again, the title here is Addition of Real Numbers. The focus is going to be learning how to add positives and negatives, but we'll also include decimals and fractions in that process. Okay? So using a little bit of our vocabulary that we're getting used to with all the different types of numbers that we did in 1.4. So the book method starts by talking about the number line way. It's a very visual way of thinking about adding positive and negative numbers. So the book method that they first present is to use a number line, or once you get real comfortable with it, you would visualize a number line in your head. And you would plot the first number that's given to you, the one that's on the left of your two things that you're adding, okay? And then you would move the amount of spaces away from that first number that's equal to the second number that you're given. And if it's positive, you would move to the right. If that number is negative, you would move to the left from that first number. Now, so let me show you what that would look like. So if this is our number line here, just any generic number line, and we'll just put 0 in as a reference. Positive numbers are to the right, negative numbers are to the left. And let's see, I'll put a couple more things here. We would plot our first number, say here. I'm just doing a generic here, I'm not giving any values to it. This is our first number, and then we were adding a second number. Let's say we're adding a positive number here. You would move right if you're adding a positive, you'd move left if you're adding a negative, and you'd move however many spaces that number was equal to. Okay, so the number of spaces equals the second number. The direction is equal to the so this is how far you would move. The direction is related to the sign of the number. Okay, so that's one way to think of how to add positive and negative numbers. So this spot right here would be equal to your answer to that. Okay, so imagine you're on the number line, and a positive moves you this direction, a negative moves you to the left. Positive moves you to the right, negative to the left. Okay, so we'll just do a couple using that method, and then we'll talk about another way you can do it. And again, the number line is just a way to visualize and see and be convinced that these aren't just a bunch of random rules. It's because it follows a logical order of things. So we'll look at number 6 here, -8 plus 3. I always put 0 as a reference here. And I kind of take a moment to look at the numbers that I'm given to set it up here. I know that -8 is my starting point, so I went ahead and put 0 kind of over to the right here, kind of like I'm looking at the left side. And so my starting point is here at -8. You don't have to label everything on your number line. But let's go ahead here at -8. This is where I'm going to start. And then I'm going to, we are adding 3. So we're adding a positive 3. What you want to look for is the sign in front of the number, not the addition sign, the addition operation. Okay, so this is like it's a positive 3 there. So adding, this is how you add positive or negative numbers, okay? So it's a positive 3, so we're going to move 3 to the right. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. It's like learning how to play a board game. You know, you had to learn how to jump those little squares. That's exactly what we're doing here. Where we land is our answer. We landed right here at -5. And just a reminder, I always put 0 in there for reference. It's just a way to kind of keep in perspective where things are. Let's do that again with number 2 here. 7 plus a -2. So what's different? We started with a negative, we added a positive. This time we're starting with a positive, adding a negative. You can imagine there's several combinations here. You could have a negative adding a negative. You could have a negative adding a positive. So, or actually, I'm sorry, a positive adding a positive. So there's 4 different situations, but the rule stays the same. The way you deal with it in terms of picturing it on a number line here. So this time I'm going to start with my reference point 0 more towards the left because I'm starting at a positive 7. 4, 5, 6, 7. So here's my start. Here's my start. The sign of the 2 is negative, so that means I'm going to move 2 to the left. So 1, 2, and that's where I finish here, so this is equal to my answer. And where that ends up is going to be at 5. So my answer is equal to 5. Okay, now but there's other ways to think of adding and subtracting. Some people like to think in terms of money. I like to just keep 2 rules in mind for dealing with all 4 situations where we're adding 2 numbers, because they're either going to be a sorry, I'm going to start down here. It's either going to be a positive plus another positive, a negative plus another negative. Our other 2 options are a positive plus a negative, or a negative plus a positive. Okay, so this is another way to think of it. If the signs are the same, which would be these 2 categories right here, positive and positive, negative and negative, okay? So that's the situation here. Our signs, same signs, okay? I use those S's, which is my little memory trigger here. Same signs, that means I'm going to find the sum. Alright, so I use that S here. S for same, S for sum. Same signs, sum. Sum needs to add. Oh, of course. Which what I mean is I'm going to ignore the signs just briefly and just add just the plain old numbers. Don't worry about the signs. I've noted that they're the same. That helps me make the decision to just add them together. And then I'm going to go ahead and keep the sign. So if they're both positive, my answer is positive. If they're both negative, my answer is negative. So here's a quick example of that. If I had -3 plus a -4, the signs are the same. Okay, they're both negative. So that means they're the same, which means I'm going to sum 3 plus 4, which is 7. Sum means to add. And then I'm going to attach that negative sign. So it becomes -7. Okay, they're both negative, so I attach the negative sign after I add them together. So same signs, sum. So this could be positive plus positive or negative plus negative. Now with different signs, which is these 2 in pink down here, positive plus negative or negative plus positive, the signs are different, and that I use that word different to remind me to find the difference. I'm going to subtract these 2 numbers from each other, and again I'll just use a little visual highlight here. D for different, and D for difference. In fact, the whole word is really a clue here. Different, difference. Well, what does that mean? Again, I'm going to ignore the signs after I've decided that they're different. After I've observed that they're different, I ignore the signs for the moment. Go ahead and subtract the numbers, just big minus little. Okay. And keep the bigger sign. Now I'm putting that in quotes here because what I mean is I don't mean on a number line a bigger answer. Just when I look at the two numbers without their signs, one of them's got to be bigger. It's the one that I used first, bigger minus smaller. I keep the sign of the bigger number. Okay. So an example for that is if I had, let's do negative 13 plus 4. We have a negative and a positive here. Okay, they're different, so that means I'm going to subtract. So I take, and the 13 is bigger, so I just take 13 minus 4. I just take my 13 and my 4. I note that the 13 has the 13 is bigger and it's negative, so I get a 9, and then I attach that negative out front. Okay, so first I notice that one's negative, one's positive. That means they're different. That means I'm going to subtract. Then I ignore the numbers for the signs for a while and just pull the 13, just pull the 4, and I subtract those two. That gives me a 9. I go back, the 13 is bigger than the 4. What was the original sign? It was negative. Okay? And if you were to compare that to a number line situation, I may be off my, no, you can kind of see that on the video. Okay. When you compare that to the number line situation, if I was at negative 13 and then I added 4, I'd be moving 4 to the right. That would land me on negative 9. So both methods get you to the same answer. It's going to be a matter, once again, of which method makes the most sense to you. That's the method that I want you using because it'll get you consistently right answers that you can be confident in, and that's what we want. Okay? All right, that takes care of this page. You might want to take a moment to kind of talk it through, kind of maybe lean one way or the other towards method. You might have a third method that you like and that's working for you, and at the next video we'll do some practice problems and you'll do a couple try problems as well. Okay, we'll see you then.